Welcome to the Liberated Feminine Podcast. I'm Lucy Lampy, your host, and in this episode, we're exploring Feminine Receptivity 101. This is kind of a crash course, if you will, on feminine receptivity. Now, when I say feminine, this is not just women, right? This is everyone. Everyone has feminine and masculine energies and qualities in them. And the whole thing really in being a liberated woman, the premise of liberated feminine embodiment is wholeness, which includes calling home to yourself these parts of your masculine energy that you have perhaps disowned or rejected or denied, and also the distorted masculine aspects that we have come to see as quote-unquote masculine or toxic masculinity. Now, I'm not going to get too deep into the toxic femininity aspect of this, but just know that this does have a hand in how we experience our feminine receptivity. Now, when it comes to feminine receptivity, and just like it sounds, it's receiving, not just from a partner or in bed, but from the universe, from life. What are you receptive to? However, it is just as important to define what are you not open to receiving. Just like with our masculine energy, it's just as much about what are we not open to providing, or what are we not available to provide, as it is defining what are we available to provide, what are we willing and capable of providing. Now, your receptivity is so intimately tied with your self-worth. And things like, for example, a self-pleasure practice or having the uncomfortable conversations with a partner or a friend or a family member are so reflective of your feminine receptivity. And this is actually a really powerful way to gauge where you're at in relation to how much you want to be open to receiving and how open you are to receiving the things that your heart really wants to receive. Now let's explore what gets in the way of us receiving what we really want to receive. For one, as I mentioned, self-worth. Now you may think consciously, I deserve this, I am worthy of this, I desire this. But deep down, there's some kind of really profound imprint that you can't have it until you earn it by doing X, Y, Z, or that someone that comes from my family or, women in my family, we don't get to have that. And perhaps it's as simple as you never saw anyone in your life model having that. So there's no reference point for your subconscious mind to say, oh, this is what that's like. This is what it feels like to have, or this is what it looks like for a woman to have a partner who is emotionally aware and stable and secure in himself and doesn't get defensive and allows space for multiple, perceptions and realities to coexist. In fact, actually, that's really a good one because very few of us have ever seen that modeled in a healthy way. To see an actual healthy relationship modeled where conflict is not treated as the enemy, but treated as a tool, an access point for deeper intimacy. And so this can block us from being able to truly energetically open ourselves to receive the kind of partner that can provide that. And working with this deep thing that we all have to some degree of self-worth is a tall order, y'all. It's a tall order. And all of us will be working through some layer of this throughout our lives. And the key is to really be aware of when that's coming up and to challenge that. And, okay, I see this part of me that doesn't feel worthy of having this thing or this experience that I'm really, really desiring. And even something as simple as visualizing that barrier around you beginning to soften and dissolve And then imagine and invoke, don't just imagine, like visualize, but invoking this energy of what it is that you're wanting to experience more of, and letting that just trickle over those barriers around your heart, around your being, and slowly softening and dissolving these layers of unworthiness. And also, it's really important to understand that this isn't even always yours that you're carrying. Sometimes you're carrying the ancestral, the generational sense of unworthiness, this inherent feeling of, I'm not good enough. And that, it's almost like we armor up more and we protect ourselves from receiving the very things that we want in life. Because number two, this is another barrier, right? This is the second thing next to self-worth, is that fear of losing something so good, the fear of loss. We block ourselves from receiving our blessings because we're afraid of losing them. It's that thought of, it's better to have never had something than to have had it and then lose it. The pain, the excruciating grief of losing something that was so, so good. And so this is a tricky one. And this is one that I have worked with so deeply and that I continue to work with very deeply. It comes up, it rears its head. It's like, hello, I'm back, bitch. I'm like, hello, old friend. Okay, what are we working on this time? And it's that self-protecting, it's really our egos protecting ourselves from pain. And, we can appreciate that because our ego's just here to keep us from experiencing more pain. However, when we're also blocking ourselves from experiencing more love. And that hardening around our hearts that we think is protecting us is actually keeping what we want at arm's length. And the key thing here is to understand that when you soften your heart and you really allow yourself to embody and open to this feminine receptivity to life itself, let's stick with that, to the blessings of the universe, of God, of love, it's not about never getting hurt or never experiencing what feels like loss. The key is to be so anchored into that love, into your light, into, let's also say, that source masculine protection and providership that no matter what happens, you're good. You're held, you're supported, you're loved, you're guided. That. When you fundamentally believe and know and remember that truth, your receptivity just can blast wide open and you get to experience this blissful state of surrender where it's like you don't have to call the shots, you don't have to be in control. This something greater than you from which you came that knows you so intimately and fully in every imaginable and unimaginable way is for you and has your back. And there is such a safety and a liberation and an exhale in not having to be in control. And furthermore, there's this remembrance that your soul chose exactly this. And so there's also this deep self-trust of like, I think I knew what I was getting myself into. and I knew that I would be okay. And I knew that it would all be for my highest good. And I knew that it would be safe to open to love. And that would guide me into everything I would need to know and be and do. And so then you're really free to receiving. What's funny is that we hear about feminine receptivity usually in the realm of relationship, right? Which is a beautiful reflection, a microcosm of the macrocosm of life and consciousness and universe and God. And yet there are a lot of distortions in how we talk about and understand feminine receptivity. Because as I said at the beginning of this, it's not that you're never in the providing space. If you have an outlet, right, you have the outlet that is receiving the plug, right? And then you have the plug. And sometimes you're the plug, sometimes you're the outlet. It just depends, what is life calling for? What is that specific context or situation calling for? And that is for you to establish that discernment and that connection and trust and remembrance with the source masculine, source feminine, and to be able to adapt and say, okay, what flavor of my femininity is needed in this situation or interaction? What flavor of my masculine energy is required? And so you're never just this big ooey gooey puddle of receiving everything. As I said also before, it's just as important to be clear on what you are not open to receiving. Let's say in the relationship context, it's just as important to define what you do want and what you don't want. So it doesn't leave a void. So for example, if someone has experienced a lot of, or even witnessed, grown up seeing this a lot, abusive relationships, then she might decide, okay, I don't want an abusive relationship. I don't want someone who is going to yell at me or throw things or, treat me the way that I saw my mother treated, for example. In its place, okay, what do I want? Because if you leave that void, and I've seen this so many times, again, where there can be this swing of the pendulum from someone who is, let's say, volatile or even abusive to someone who is emotionally shut down and unavailable. So on the surface, yeah, there's a piece, but inside that person is not available either. So to be able to say, okay, I want someone and I am worthy of someone and I will not settle for anything less than someone who can show that they have the emotional maturity to work through the difficult emotions and to know, to be able to take space when the feelings get so big that he can protect me from his fear and his ego and vice versa, that I can provide that as well. And so in this context, there is clarity on both what is wanted and what is not wanted. So you get a more clear image of what it is that you're calling in. And it becomes a more conscious co-creation with the universe. And anything that doesn't align with that, you say, no, this is a distraction. Now, this is not to say that there's ever a perfect ready-made partner, because there is not. But when you really tune into your deeper knowing, your womb wisdom, your intuition, your heart, your soul remembrance, that. And you inquire, okay, is this a relationship for me to keep investing myself into? Or are those, let's say, red flags actually my cue that this is not it? So again, why it is so important to be open and willing to going deeper into ourselves. Like, what is it that I really want? What is it that I need? What is it that I actually desire? Like deep desires, needs, and preferences, and being able to distinguish between those. And as I mentioned more in depth in the episode about compatibility and when it's time to leave, maybe go back and check that one out if this is something that interests you or that you're brewing over in your mind right now. But aside from that, really with this theme of feminine receptivity, it will serve you immensely to define what it is that you are not open to receiving just as much as what it is that you are wanting to call in. And so you are fine-tuning that homing beacon, that magnetizing that you're calling these experiences, these people, these situations or these blessings into your life. Now, a third thing that can get in the way of our feminine receptivity is a sense of obligation. And within that is, yes, this sense of guilt or unworthiness. All of that can certainly be clumped together. But very specifically, what I'm talking about here is, when someone gives you something, whether it's a gift or a cup of tea or coffee or a compliment, and that sense of like, oh, I now I'm gonna give you something in return, or now I owe you something. And it's beautiful when it flows. It's beautiful when it flows. Like, okay, you make breakfast and I'll make lunch. Cool. But it's not always meant to be equal or reciprocated in the same way. And this is something, too, that I really appreciate about Alison Armstrong's work. If any of you have gotten into her work, if not, maybe take a peek on YouTube or her website or look at her books. And one day I would love to have her on this podcast to unpack these themes more. But this theme around how what she would refer to as like the more testosterone brain and the more estrogen brain. How a woman, typically, let's say, very typically speaking, a woman's brain functions in a way that, like, okay, I listen to you for 45 minutes and now you listen to me for 45 minutes. And the masculine brain, or as she calls it, the testosterone brain, the more like the male brain, the typical male brain, doesn't operate that way. It says, okay, I give to you, and the way that I know it was valuable to you is because you took it and used it. And that's enough. I love providing that for you. There's not this expectation of like, I'm going to fix your flat tire and you're going to fix mine next time, And so it's interesting because us as, a large majority, I know this is definitely a theme amongst women that I have seen and that I have experienced myself, that when we have this sense of obligation, it makes it really hard for us to receive, because then we think, oh shit, well, when am I expected to return the back rub? Or what am I expected to give in exchange for this back rub? Instead of just receiving it for what it is and really soaking it up and exuding the gratitude, we end up making it so much harder for ourselves to receive exactly what it is that we want more of, because then, maybe we feel unworthy, or we're afraid of getting too used to it and then losing it, not having it anymore, or we're afraid that I'm gonna be indebted to you now that you've done this thing for me. So with these 3 specific ways that you might be blocking your blessings, your affection, your love, like the things that you want in your life, your relationships, your business, anything, any possible way that you want to receive from life, my invitation to you through this episode is to simply bring more awareness and curiosity to maybe which of those 3 things is keeping you from receiving unashamedly, unapologetically, just open, wide open, like, give me more. And not because I need more. I don't even need more. I'm just like, I'm so full, just fullness, more fullness of love. And that is how the feminine is in her radiance, in her fullness, unafraid to receive, because that barrier of, again, the 3 that we mentioned today were self-worth, or fear of loss, or this sense of obligation, they have been softened. And so also bringing in something like what I mentioned earlier in this episode of a simple visualization practice of, okay, if my barriers to love and my resistance to receiving had a texture to it, what would that be? Would it be like the steel wall, a stone, cement? Would it be prickly? Would it have like thorns on it? Would it have some kind of, barbed wire around it? What does that look like? And then invoking in this unconditional love in this, like, however you want to envision that. My mind always likes to call it in as like this warm, glowing waterfall of light. It's like a soft white light. It's like whitish yellow. And it just permeates everything, and it starts to soften it. And just let yourself be softened by love. And with that, notice how any feelings of vulnerability come up, any stories, any sense of like, oh my God, this is fucking scary. I don't know, is this safe? And then just reassure your ego, or the part of you that's afraid, like, it's okay. We're going to be okay. And this is going to be so much better on the other side of softening to love. And we're going to feel some new depths of things. All right. As you do practice this, I would love to hear your experiences and your thoughts. Email me at support@thewildawakening.com. And in the meantime, thank you for tuning in to this episode. And here's to liberating your wild feminine heart. Bring the bass, give me a taste, lay me the way, stimulate the plaything. I got the feeling this original scene's gonna take me way deep. Are you